Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my Wild Rift tier list for patch 5.3c. We've got reworks to talk about in this video, some huge buffs and nerfs, a new champion to discuss about, and so much more. But before all that, it wouldn't be Christmas time without doing a huge Christmas giveaway. So I'm going to be giving away some random skin chests to you all. All you have to do is like the video, comment down below and subscribe to the channel. That's it. That's all you have to do, and then you'll be entered into the giveaway. And what will happen is I'll reply to the comment telling you to either add me on Twitter or on Discord, and then I'll send you the code, and voila, just like that, you'll be able to get a random skin chest. Thanks again to Riot for giving me some codes to give to you all throughout the year. It's been a crazy year for me, and of course Wild Rift and the website is still going strong, so really exciting times ahead for both Wild Rift and myself. Right, let's get into the tier list and talk about some champions and some changes that have happened. The big change in the Baron lane is I finally added Warwick into the Baron lane. I've been trying Warwick Baron lane out for quite some time. You'll probably see a video on him very soon as well, but Warwick in the Baron lane has been very strong. The big thing is that not a lot of people know about is your first ability. You can reduce the cooldown by half if you last hit a minion with your first ability. This on top of just the base stats that Warwick got given, the new ultimate as well, just means that you're a lot stronger in the Baron lane and dueling, but also you're one of the best roaming champions in the game. You can roam from Baron lane to mid lane, use your ultimate, and since your ultimate is so reliable in hitting and you don't really need to worry too much about hitting your first part of your ultimate, you just need to auto attack afterwards. Very reliable in terms of roaming, helping your jungler, helping your mid laner out, and sometimes if you don't get an advantage in the Baron lane, you're going to get an advantage elsewhere anyway. So really strong champion sitting up in the Baron lane. Camille and Darius still the other two best bruisers. Darius in general with Trinity Force plus the Hextech Black Cleaver, very strong champion that you can carry very easily with. Camille as well with the split pushing potential, the team fight potential with her lockdown is very nice. In terms of other champions, there are two champions that have moved down, Mordekaiser and Maokai. If I look over at this screen, it's because I have the list of changes that I did this patch. Mordekaiser, of course, with the nerf. The nerf before wasn't too bad. Before this patch, there was a little slight nerf to Mordekaiser, which still, in my opinion, made him very strong. But this nerf definitely hurt him a lot, especially his auto attack damage, his ability power damage going down overall. So Mordekaiser is still a good champion to play because it offers you ability power damage in the Baron lane. And if your team is for attack damage and you need an AP option, then Mordekaiser is still the go-to to play. However, he's not going to be as strong. He's not going to be as dominant as what he was before. Same with Maokai. I still think Maokai's support is very good, but Maokai in the Baron lane definitely took a big hit in terms of the health that you're getting with your passive and also the damage and the cooldown going up on his second ability. And then Malphite's moving up. I think Malphite is in a really strong spot. If you're against at least 3 AD champions, then Malphite is a great pick. Since you scale more with your armor now, if you didn't know before, then Malphite scales with armor and does more damage based on his armor. They now boosted them numbers up, so it means you can do more damage now with Malphite if you're building him more as a tank. So overall, very strong champion to play if you want another tank alternative that has a very impactful ultimate. Other than that, no other changes in the Baron lane. I think I've actually moved Ambessa down from S tier to A tier. I mean, Ambessa not very strong in the Baron lane, kind of struggles in early levels to duel in the early phases, but in the jungle, she's really good, which I'll talk about in a second. Singed, I obviously haven't placed him any higher or lower yet. I've still kept him the same. The rework doesn't come out until next week, so we still got a little bit of time to wait for Singed rework, but I think Singed is going to be much stronger than what he was before. I think support Singed is also going to be very interesting to play. So overall, no changes obviously to Singed because he hasn't been released yet in terms of his rework. Sorry. I'm expecting him to move up the tier list. But yeah, other than that, everything else pretty much stayed the same. In the jungle, Diana has moved up into S+ tier, the new AP queen in the jungle. Lilia has now moved down into S tier. Big thing with Diana was her rework. You can now move and use other abilities and summoner spells with your ultimate, which gives you so much more playmaking potential with Diana. Before, it was very easy to just flash away or dash away from Diana's ultimate because you'll be standing still and you will have to hold the ability, so you can't use other abilities or anything else. Now you just tap it once, the area of effect around you grows bigger, and you can even use your third ability. You can use your flash to get into the back line and do a bunch of damage. One easy combo that you can do now is go onto the front line, dash on the front line, especially get your reset off with your first ability with your Moonlight. If you get a reset, then you can press your ultimate on the front line, and then when your ultimate is just about to do the damage, you flash onto the back line, or you use your third ability onto the back line, and you can do this huge AoE burst damage. So you do have to be careful now when you're playing against Diana, because even if she's using her ultimate on the front line, she can still use her flash, she can still use her third ability, and still do a lot of burst damage on the back line. But yeah, overall, the new passive as well is very good to help Diana's jungle clear in the early game, and also help her a little bit with her burst damage. Overall, she's become a lot stronger. As I mentioned, this does mean that Lilia moves down. Diana is now the best AP champion to play. I would say Echo's pretty close. I could probably move Echo up into S+ tier as well. Echo is very good since the changes that happened a while ago. Echo is also a very good jungler to play. Either Diana or Echo as AP choices in the jungle are both very, very strong. If you want a more tanky version, you can play something like a Mumu with like a flexible build with both tankiness and ability power. But if you want more carry AP champions, then Echo and Diana are great. Xin Zhao did receive a nerf. Honestly, I don't think the nerf is too much. It was just a second ability going down in terms of damage. Didn't really do that much. I mean, whether you play Xin Zhao with Conqueror, with Phase Rush, Bruiser, full damage, the champion still is absolutely great. You can deny so much damage with your ultimate, especially if you stay out of range of AD champions or just any ranged champions overall. The champion still works incredibly well. Of course, Warwick is still up here, and Better, as I just mentioned, is still very good in the jungle, just doesn't really work very well in the Baron lane. And Wukong's still up there as well, just because of how much damage and how much teamfight presence you have. Lilia moved down, spoken about that one. Lee Sin did receive a buff. The buff is actually really nice. It kind of makes Lee Sin a lot easier to play, giving you more health per level, more armor per level, and also more shielding on your second ability. So if you do get caught with Lee Sin, if you do dive a little bit too far, you are going to have more survivability now to be able to escape or try and survive for a lot longer. So overall, it's made Lee Sin easier to play. He is probably an S+ tier champion in the right hands. The problem is having the person in the right hands, having the right person to pilot Lee Sin. That's the big difference for me, is that Lee Sin overall is a great champion. I mean, if you understand how the champion works and if you know his limits, then he's a great champion to play, probably one of the best to play. However, it's that kind of skill gap of a new Lee Sin player compared to a person who's played Lee Sin for quite some time. Me personally, I'm not a Lee Sin main. I mean, you probably saw in my gameplay that I do make a few mistakes, but overall, it's just how the champion works. It's very difficult, high playmaking potential, but if you're able to understand just a little bit of Lee Sin, then he could still be very strong. But yeah, stays in S tier, but again, does have potential to go into S+ tier. Again, the two big champions are Lee Sin and Echo. These two champions can definitely move up into S+ tier. Other than that, S tier has pretty much stayed the same. We still have Shyvana in here after our recent buffs. Rengar is still pretty decent to play. Vi with her lockdown is still really good. Jarvan, Rammus. There are still some really, really nice champions here to play. Talon's moved down from S tier into A tier. They definitely nerfed him quite a lot now. It's 2 patches in a row he's been nerfed. Again, kind of same with Mordekaiser. The nerfs before didn't really affect him too much, but double nerf back-to-back in back-to-back patches means that Talon is just going to be weaker overall. I believe it was his ultimate and his third ability jump that got nerfed, so it's more to do with his mobility, so he's not going to be as mobile anymore. Again, moved him down into the A tier. Other than that, I don't think there is anything else in the jungle. Everything else has pretty much stayed the same. Mid lane, S+ tier has stayed the same. There's probably a way in which more champions can definitely move up into the S+ tier. Again, I'm thinking of these 3 champions, which I'm going to talk about again. These 3 champions, again, can probably move up into the S+ tier or have potential to move up into S+ tier. The reason why Heimerdinger is still up here, he didn't get nerfed in this patch, but he's got nerfed a few patches ago. It's just because how easy he is to play. He just plays around his turrets. You just put his turrets down, you throw out your abilities, and you do a bunch of damage. He's pretty easy to play, and he still does a bunch of damage, and his zoning control is also very nice. Yasuo, of course, still very strong. Doesn't matter what type of build you go, whether you go for Blade Rune King into full damage or Wits End into tankiness, still a very good build. And Syndra as well. Syndra, her scaling with upgrading her abilities is going to be very, very powerful and will always be powerful until she gets nerfed. Victor, of course, we know a little bit about Victor because of the PBE. His numbers are pretty nuts, to be fair, on the PBE. I've played a few games of him, obviously just against bots because I'm from Europe, so I'm not able to actually find a game. But just against bots, I mean, his damage, his base damages overall seems really, really nice. I do think he is going to go first strike. Arcane Comet might be an option, but it's a little bit unreliable. Summon Airy is normally quite a good option on PC League, but Summon Airy on Wild Rift is just very weak in terms of the damage. That's why you never really see it. So I think First Strike is going to be really good. I mean, you can proc First Strike with your second ability or even your third ability at range, and then follow up with your ultimate so you can do true damage. So you could do a lot of poke damage and you can get stacking on First Strike very quickly. I do think he's going to be S. Again, it's kind of a prediction in terms of a tier, but he's out in a few days' time, so we don't have to wait too long to give him a test and give him a little test and see what he's like. Diana and Orianna. Orianna's nerf is Orianna's buff, sorry, is pretty big. It means now that you don't really need to build Archangel and Luden's Echo in the same build, since they nerfed the mana cost quite heavily on the first ability. The problem before with Orianna is that she was using mana so constantly because all her abilities have very low cooldown, and she's a champion that's to do with sustained damage over time. So you're using your first ability, you're repositioning your ball, you're using all your other abilities to do a bunch of damage. That mana cost going down means that you can still build both the items, but the problem before with Orianna is that you didn't really have the early game base damage to kind of, I guess in a way, make do for what your late game scaling is going to become. Because if you're building Archangel as a first item, your early game is going to be pretty weak. So you want kind of high base damage in your early game to negate kind of the early game weakness that you're going to have in terms of items. That wasn't the case before with Orianna. Now you can kind of skip Archangel if you want to and go straight into Luden's into burst damage. And you will probably run out of mana a few times, but not as often as what you used before. And Diana, of course, again, with her rework, very, very powerful. Even if you play her in the mid lane, you can go with the resolve tree and go things like nullifying orb, second wind, so you have that survivability early game, and then have that playmaker potential with her ultimate in the late game. Again, other than that, no other changes, nothing else too crazy. I mean, AP Malphite is still here because people were asking for AP Malphite mid. Yeah, they nerfed AP Malphite mid, but I still see it in every single one of my games. I don't know why. Lucian moved down from A to B tier. I'll talk about that a little bit in the ADC section next. Yeah, other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. Yeah, ADC tier list. Lucian going down from S+ tier to S tier. Lucian is still a great champion to play in the right scenario, and also when you have the right support. Lucian Nami is still going to be one of the strongest bot lane duos. It's just the thing is, Lucian doesn't have as much scaling damage as what he did before. The new passive coming in was a mistake, not a mistake, but the damage numbers in general with the new passive coming in was just a mistake. They should have nerfed the numbers. They should have realized that this new passive is what makes Lucian so strong on PC League in the first place, and they move over to Wild Rift. They nerfed his base damage by like 2 or 4, and they were like, cool, go wild, and he became the strongest ADC. Now with the nerfs, he's still good as an AD carry, but again, not as strong to go up in the S+ tier. I still think the two best ADCs right now are Caitlyn and Xayah. I've moved Varus down. The thing is with Varus is like in such a weird spot. He's a good champion to play and he does a bunch of damage, but he doesn't have the same carry potential as like these late game scaling lethal tempo champions like Xayah, Caitlyn, Tristana, Zeri, Severe, for example, who, by the way, Severe has a crazy high win rate at the moment just because of how much benefit you can get with her ultimate. But yeah, Varus is a good champion, but it can definitely struggle to, you know, kind of carry when it gets to the mid and the late game. Other than that, nothing else has really changed in the ADC tier list. Kai'Sa still sits down in A tier because of her nerfs. Ezreal, actually, I think I moved Ezreal down. Yeah, I moved Ezreal down from S tier to A tier. The problem with Ezreal is, again, the kind of same as Varus in a way, that these lethal tempo champions, just with lethal tempo in general being a very strong rune, these champions that don't use lethal tempo are much weaker. I mean, you think of, I mean, even Draven doesn't really need to use lethal tempo, sometimes use another rune. Jhin is much weaker because he doesn't use lethal tempo. Ezreal, Samira, Lucian is becoming a bit weaker. Varus as well. These champions in general that don't use lethal tempo, Nida and Corki again, are just not going to be as strong because the scaling of lethal tempo when it gets to mid and late game is way too good compared to these other champions that don't use lethal tempo. But yeah, overall pretty happy with this ADC tier list. I think it's in a pretty decent spot. Support. Maokai's moved down from S+ tier to S tier. He's still a great support to play. He's still very fun. He's still a very, very strong tank. And he's still probably the best tank to go in terms of, I should say, the best tanks to go as a support. I still think the best tank at the moment is Leona. Her playmaker potential with her ultimate, with all of her crowd control, and also with how tanky she is as well, is just very, very powerful. And Janna, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best enchanter supports right now. Closely followed behind by the likes of Lulu. Soraka is still very good, and also Milio. There are still some really, really good enchanter supports that you can play that's not Janna, or there's still some good alternatives to Leona, but I still think there's a slight edge where Janna and Leona are just above the rest, in my opinion. Other than that, again, nothing else really changed in the support tier list. That's everything for this tier list. Again, some big things to talk about. Again, another thing with the support tier list is I will probably add Singed at some point to the support tier list. Again, I have to kind of wait until he comes out next week. But some big things to test over the next few weeks. Of course, Victor's coming out very soon. Singed coming out next week. We still have, obviously, the reworks coming in, which has shaped up the meta ever so slightly. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the meta. I don't think it's too bad. I still think we're in a very one-shot meta where it's like whoever deals the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time will win a fight and just burst the champion 100-0, which is kind of annoying, but hopefully some things will change in the future. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the tier list. Again, as I mentioned, make sure you enter the giveaway, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and like the video. That's all you have to do to enter the giveaway. But I appreciate you all. Thank you all for the support this year, as always. I'll see you all again in the next Wild Rift video. Peace.